Whether you haven't tried the Monster Hunter Wilds beta yet or you're enjoying it like I am, here's 12 tips and tricks you might not know about. Since creating a character is the first thing you do, the first tip is to really spend some time now during the beta and create one you really like. If you think you're going to buy the game, you can transfer your character from the beta to the full game. If you look down here in the corner, you can see a character edit voucher with a little unlimited icon next to it. It's not confirmed as far as I know, but it's usually a thing with Monster Hunter games that you have to pay real money for vouchers so you can edit your character after the initial creation. And this also counts for your Palico. So spend some time in here if you care about these things. Second tip is more for beginners that haven't played Monster Hunter before, but there's also some new features in Wilds when it comes to the item box and loadouts. You can access your chest from the base camp or in one of your tents that you put up around the map. New to Wilds is the ability to create stacks of items. By pressing G on a keyboard or square for PlayStation and X on an Xbox controller, you can move items around as you like and stack them on top of each other. You can hold the button to move the whole stack. For example, you can create a stack of healing items or tools, etc. This gives your item pouch a much cleaner and organized look. Once you're done, you can press Shift on a keyboard or the left thumbstick on a controller to save it to a loadout. By doing this, you don't have to manually sort your pouch after each hunt. You just go to your loadout and select it, and all your items will also be restocked. If you have more of those items in your chest, of course. And by the way, you can hide some items by clicking on it, if you for example know you won't go fishing or be using your binoculars. And speaking of items, nothing will carry over, so you don't have to go grinding for plates or iron ore in the hopes that you will get to keep them in the full game. Before you go hunting, there's a few settings worth mentioning. If you're a numbers geek like me, you can now see damage numbers with decimal values. It's up to you if you find this useful. And then on page 2, I always choose to show a fixed health and stamina bar, as I just like to know how much health I have at any given moment. If you don't have a waypoint selected on a map and you're riding your Sacred, he will just wander off in any direction, and I find this very annoying, so I recommend turning off auto exploring. Next, in control settings, I recommend disabling auto sheath, as this can quickly get annoying as well. If you go into camera settings, you have a lot of options here as well, but one thing I always change is the camera distance to the player. I like having it as far out as possible for a better view when hunting big monsters. And focus camera. It took me about 5 minutes of playing the beta before I started looking for this setting. This is the setting that forces your camera to look in the direction of the monster you're fighting. And for me at least, that is awful. I like to be able to look around on my own terms. Other than that, there's a ton of settings and options, which is awesome to see. So if there's something you prefer to be different, there's probably an option for it. You can also now bring 2 weapons with you on a hunt. In the beta there is only one of each type, but I hope in a full game you can bring 2 weapons of the same category. Example of this could be to bring 1 status weapon and 1 elemental weapon, or 1 for element and 1 for raw damage. Another use case is to bring 1 ranged weapon and then 1 sword for the more up close and personal encounters. Try all the weapons and see what you like, and then bring a second weapon that's the polar opposite of that. For example, I tried to have a great sword and then dual blades. And speaking of weapons, if you go into play guide and then weapon controls, you can see all the different combos and moves each weapon has. This is a nice way to learn each weapon and see what it can do. Before you hunt, you should always eat to get various buffs, and you can do this by using the portable barbecue grill. You can just select recommended meal if you want, but if you go to custom meal, you can see you have 3 options: meat, fish and veggies for a bonus to attack, defense and elemental resistance respectively. Then you can add an additional ingredient which extends the duration of the food buff by 20 minutes and also gives a food skill, which is very useful. The last is a sprinkle or finishing touch, which is pretty much the same, as it gives you another skill and then some resistance. Also, if you noticed in ingredients, I had something called Kunafa cheese, and you can pick that up yourself from Isai if you go to Vinsong village in the middle of the map. In Monster Hunter Wilds, the same monsters can have different difficulty, if you look at the number of stars next to their name. As you can see, a Balahara can have both 1 star and 3 stars, and I believe up to 4 stars, just like the Doshaguma you can see here. So if you're wondering why a hunt takes longer or hits harder than usual, then that's why. Speaking of hitting harder, if you found this video useful so far, please consider hitting that like button and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. If you do get hit though, you can now call on your dog Bird to pick you up from a down position. This can be very useful, or maybe even too useful. If you for example get knocked down and the monster is about to do a follow-up attack, you can just hold the call button and the horse will swipe you up and bring you out of danger. Also worth mentioning that it can also glide and drift pretty glamorously as well. A new feature is to gather items and plants while riding, but something you might not know is that you don't have to look at what you're gathering. You can just hold or toggle the focus camera with L2 or Alt on a keyboard, and then just select which item you want to pick up with the D-pad for controller or tab for a keyboard. This way you can just select a waypoint on the map, and while auto-traveling there, you can pick up what you want without having to look around with the camera. Don't forget to use your pods during hunts. Use a flash pod to bring down Ray Dow and even interrupt his attacks. A screamer pod will force Balahara up to the surface. And use dung pods to split up groups of monsters so you can focus on one at a time. The large dung pod will make them all scatter in different directions, but the normal one is easier to target each monster that you want to go away so you can concentrate on one at a time. You can capture monsters, and for this you need a shock trap and trank bombs. You have plenty of shock traps already, but to craft trank bombs you need 1 sleep herb and 1 parashroom. There's only 1 sleep herb on the map, but it respawns every 15 minutes and there's a tent nearby for fast traveling. I have found 2 parashrooms so far, and to find them you can look at my map here for the locations, but you can also go to your map and then you go down to filters and filter by gathering. To capture, you must weaken the monster until you see a skull icon on the minimap, and usually the monster limps away and goes to sleep at this point. Then you just place a shock trap and use 2 trank bombs to capture it. You usually get more materials from capturing, but that doesn't really matter now since you don't get to keep the items anyway. But hey, at least you shave some time off the clock at least. Also, by the way, try going for the sneak surprise attack as often as you can for big damage. Hunting online and with friends is a big part of Monster Hunter, but if you prefer to play solo, but at the same time have someone take the beating for you, you can do that by playing with NPCs. I've tried it a few times now and the AI is actually not that bad at all, honestly. Go to Alma and post a quest. Then you go to settings, and in here you can select only support hunters. To make them appear automatically, just choose automatic SOS flare and auto accept quest. Now just pick whatever quest you want, or just attack a random monster in free roam and then they will appear. Also, if you go into game settings, you have a few options to make them behave like you want. If you, for example, want them to stop putting down traps, or you want to be the only one to mount monsters, just select that here and you're ready to go. Alright, that's it for today. I hope some of it helped you out, and enjoy the rest of the beta. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.